I'm Joe Halco, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS, Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide a continuum of the highest quality services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point seek assistance. The NCSS Developmental Services Emergency and Respite Supports play a significant role in the lives of individuals with developmental or intellectual disabilities and their caregivers. These supports are being extended around the clock and throughout the year and are delivered unseen to most of the community. To discuss NCSS's Developmental Services Emergency and Respite Supports, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guests. Ed Riddle, the Developmental Services Emergency Services Team Leader, Angel Goldsmith, Assistant House Manager at Berry Hill, and Caitlin Lakis, Service Coordinator on the Life Management Team. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the program.
Thanks.
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you.
So let's get started with how do people access Developmental Services Emergency and Respite Support Services?
So the easiest way to say that is they're going to call us or they're going to schedule. When we talk about the Developmental Services Emergency Response Team, that is set up on a pager and a phone number. And when individuals who are being supported by our Developmental Services Division need support, need something, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. And I want Caitlin to really express the work that we do in that area as a responder. But they access us through that phone number, and then we receive a page, and then we respond to the page, and then we connect with the team or connect with the individual and then start to work with them. It's similar, and we'll talk about the behavioral emergency services in a minute. As far as the Berry Hill Respite Program goes, it's a program where folks that are already receiving services, that are receiving residential type services, whether it's home provider or family support, they have the opportunity to schedule into the house. And Angel will talk as my manager up there in that wonderful program at Berry Hill. She'll talk about how that piece works.
Okay. So let's go to, and Ed, you kind of touched on it a tad there, but can you explain the difference between the NCSS Developmental Services Emergency Services and our Behavioral Health Emergency Services?
Absolutely. So, and I know, Joe, you've probably had behavioral health emergency services on in the past, and you know, we work very closely with that group. But who they are is they are graduate level or better mental health professionals that work full time in a 24/7 window capacity, and it's their only role is to respond to emergencies, mental health, substance abuse, whatever is going on with an individual, to respond to them. When we talk about the Developmental Services Emergency Team, I've got, as you described, Caitlin's role. She's a service coordinator. She's got a full-time, 40-hour-a-week job. And what we've developed in the Developmental Services Division is we have an opportunity to provide a stipend, a daily stipend for a responder to take calls after hours, or if they're working on a weekend day, like Caitlin works on a Sunday. And so they will work all day long, but it's not a full-time job for them. So we're pretty careful about how we work and we respond, because we don't want to cause the emergency responders on my team to say, too much work because I got this other stuff going on. So it's really an after hours and then weekends kind of a situation. But it's different. We don't have the mental health expertise to be able to do the legal clinical screening of folks. We provide that really good, solid relational companion care, the we have people that are involved with us. I have 8 team members right now, and each of them takes a day, and I have a sub. And where their skill sets are is they've gotten to know how to work with folks that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have experience and some education involved, but it doesn't take a graduate degree to be able to understand how to work with folks who are struggling, and especially our folks that we know. And that's the other beauty is all my folks are working directly with the developmental service supported individuals. So they almost always have a relationship with them. As they call for help, they're probably going to get a responder that knows them or knows about them enough to really help them reduce whatever that crisis is. So that's really what the difference is we don't do it as a full-time, position.
Sure.
We do it with a great group of responders who take that pager for the rest of the workday or on the weekends.
And if I may just follow that up with, one of the things I think is so critical to what you're saying is the fact that so many of these individuals, because of the way they lead their lives in that, it's so critical that they have these relationships with your staff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you get that isolation factor and what have you that can settle in.
Yep.
Yep.
And the other aspect is part of what happens to folks in their build when they have an intellectual or developmental disability is sometimes there's a reduction in being able to think through things, right? And we really rely on relationship with our population because our folks need to trust. They have a tough time trusting people because of that build, and they can't think, bigly in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's that relationship that is so critical. And again, I'm just blessed to be able to have the opportunity to support a great group of people like Caitlin to be able to do that work.
So let's go right to what does a response look like when you get paged?
I'm going to leave that, Caitlin.
Well, honestly, it depends on the call. We get, a vast variety of different emergencies and different responses that are needed. It can range from just a normal check-in call to somebody just having a rough day and they just need to chat.
Yeah.
And that plays into the relationship piece. I've got my Sunday callers that call every Sunday, and, we chat for 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever they need on that day, just because they need that connection. And if they don't have that connection, then they end up spiraling into, worse things. And then we do need behavioral health and, the mental health aspect. So a lot of our, check-in calls prevent the further need of additional services, whether that be another division or emergency services, 911, stuff like that. So it really depends on the person, and it depends on, what their situation is and what they need at that time. There's been calls where we've had to dispatch 911. There's been calls that we've had to pull in mental health. And it really is very person-based. And it's building that relationship with those individuals and getting to know them either through their service coordinator or through your calls with them, and knowing what they need to make it through to the next day, what they need to help de-escalate, or even just to feel heard. And, a lot of our population don't have a lot of people and a lot of support in their life. So sometimes it comes down to us, and that's a really cool part of our job is being able to be there for those people.
Yeah, that you make a really good point about many of the individuals that we're serving just may not have a really good support system in place. So it really does get down to why somebody would call every Sunday, because it becomes a matter of part of their week and
Yeah.
what they really look forward to,
Yeah.
Which is critically important in their world.
Yeah.
If I can add a little bit, Caitlin described check-in calls.
Yes.
Check-in calls are actually a procedure that was developed within the division where service coordinators and other concerned folks would let our emergency team know that they've recognized during the week or during the day or whatever that some of their folks are struggling with some things. And so they'll let us know, and we'll put the information out to the entire team about who the person is and what's going on, and then some ideal times to be able to connect with them. And so we'll ask, as a pre-crisis response, as a proactive response, we'll ask our emergency responders to make those phone calls when they get a chance to do it. And it really is that, again, that relational thing that we've talked about. The other piece is when you get paged for somebody that's really struggling, and then that would be that emergency response that we're doing. And there are two elements to that as well. We have we'll always call them back on the pager and find out what's going on in the scene. And about 90% of our work can be done over the phone for the most part. We have really great employees and great responders, and they can build quick relational stuff with folks and just really get them settled. But the other piece is we can go mobile, and there are many times that we'll need to be the responders. At 2 a.m., somebody's stuck at the hospital emergency room, or you've got a scenario where we have a couple of, underage, we have a couple of children's folks that we support. We may be going to that house because that's the only way that the child will, be able to calm down, is to see us and be with us and have us work our skills with them in the present moment. So we do have that capacity, but most of our work is really our communication and our phone stuff, but we do have that mobile opportunity as well. So it's kind of those three prongs that we really do for the work that we do on the emergency services.
Yeah, and I know people would realize this, and Caitlin, you mentioned it, the fact that, each and every case is different. Within an individual, you could have numerous individual circumstances within a period of time. So
even in one phone call, you can have, you can spiral through, three different instances that need to be kind of worked through,
Sure.
and you're that person to help them work through it. And so a lot of our stuff is preventative, some of it's reactive, but we try to kind of get ahead of most of it, I'd say, by working as a team with all of our DS service coordinators and them really paying attention to their clients' needs and letting us know, hey, this client has a need. Can we, work on giving them an outlet, giving them a resource, and preventing it from spiraling and needing to be reactive.
Oh, yeah. So, Angel, you provide respite at Berry Hill.
We do.
We know that it's a 24/7 program.
Yes.
But tell us about the Berry Hill Respite Supports, and due to the complexities of each of the individuals that you serve, how you ensure that each stay is a positive and memorable experience for them.
So it kind of goes off of what Ed and Caitlin are saying about the individualized process.
Mm-hmm.
And so each individual's needs are met by what those are. So all of our staff is highly trained in a wide variety of what we call special care procedures. So we can take on things like urinary bags or feeding tubes, real high medical needs, mobility issues in a wheelchair. We've got a Hoyer, we've got a medical bed. We ultimately have 2 bedrooms. We can have up to 2 clients, and we have a staff member or 2 staff member depending on the clientele's needs. And so we really just individualize, focused, and what those needs are while they're at the house. And so they are able to leave decompressed, ready to restart, they're recharged and just really ready to re-go at things. And I think that Berry Hill has allowed a lot of folks this opportunity to the point where we're booked. I mean, it's almost a challenge to get in sometimes because, on the emergency services team, if they need us, we might not be able to serve that particular individual in that moment because our Berry Hill's respite program is so hefty and the needs are there dramatically. It's really quite amazing to see the facts and the numbers that really go along and play into that. But so we really just focus on what those folks need in the moment. How can we help them? We individualize things right down to what their foods are based on wants and needs. So their dietary is totally looked at before they get there. The groceries are bought. We do all personal care, including washing, showering, dressing, toileting. We do their foods prep. We cook for them. If they're capable, we include them. If they have even higher capabilities and can do it on their own, we provide services and support for that to happen. So it really just depends on whatever those needs are for each individual.
And the other part of this equation is the fact that as great as it is for them, this is also the other portion, which is gives the caregiver, a bit of time to spend in doing some other things.
Yeah. Yes.
In their lives as well.
One of the biggest needs for respite care is exactly that. A home provider or a family member that's providing a home and caring for this person, it's almost like, think about taking multiple toddlers 24/7, 365. Somebody needs a
Yep.
break at some point. You
Yep.
can't just, that's not sustainable. So, we've got a stay of 2 weeks. We can have a stay of 24 hours. We can do 72. We can do the variety of our stays is literally a variety. You never know. Every week it's completely different. And so we don't know what that home provider needs in that moment until the client arrives. We address that situation. It could be specific. It could just be a break, or they could be like working on particular goals. We recently brought in a puppy, and we were assisting the consumer on how to handle that in the night and how to walk them during the day and going to the bathroom and feeding. And so that was very unique and individualized for that particular person, which we will do with each individual that comes to Berry Hill.
And I can say from the service coordinator side, it's saved more than a few home placements. Giving them that
Ultimately,
break,
yeah.
giving them that break is really pivotal in keeping the client in the home that they're in.
It
and
is,
keeping
and
that stability.
I think that's one of Berry Hill's biggest success stories is that we have the situation where somebody's blowing out. They do not want to be around this person, the home provider situation any longer. And they come up, they decompress, even if it's 24 hours. It can make a huge difference.
Huge.
And they've reset. The home provider's like, okay, we're going to readdress, or just look at this in a different perspective. And when that person then arrives back into their home, they are able to really redo whatever that was in a positive way. And so they can move forward and they let whatever the challenge was go, or fix it or work on it, but it really is a reset. It's just a complete reset. You're not blowing out anymore. You're like, okay, you can bring them up at Berry Hill and we can sit and chat with them and really talk about different pieces and aspects of why they're there. It's not always negative. It's not always because of a blowout. It could be just because I'm on a vacation. So I'm at Berry Hill. And it can feel that way for a lot of folks. But when it's really a super need and the families are really challenging, it's definitely our biggest success story, is having the opportunity to reset those homes and not lose them. And having repetitious daily, everything's the same. The home, I mean, even just changing an appointment to go have their teeth cleaned can set somebody completely off. So having the opportunity to take that break and recharge or whatever at Berry Hill has been really beneficial for a lot of folks. We've definitely saved a lot of home providers
Absolutely.
pulling their hair out.
Yeah.
And, it's a hard job.
Even
It's
if
a
the home
hard
providers are going
job.
through, a family loss or something,
Yep.
you guys
Yeah.
being there to support that is huge. And it really does, even on my end, even talking to other service coordinators, it's amazing the change that is seen after going to Berry Hill. Even
thank
even
you.
with just the clients being able
Yeah.
to talk through stuff and just get a break. It's
Yeah.
everybody needs a break from each other, and
That's our
it's just
goal.
an amazing resource for our people.
That's our goal. All of the staff they bring their own qualities to the table up there. And it's interesting to see the different relationships that they gain, and that they can, even in the community, we can be at Walmart shopping and all of a sudden you see somebody and they're like, oh, and you get these, it's, they're friends, but they're not friends at the same time. Like, they're just these people that we get to help, and it's very heartwarming, and it really is something that makes all of us feel very good. And we're very happy to provide these services and give the home providers and family members a break. Actually, the consumers really enjoy it too, because they get to come up and be with us. And we're a fun group of people. So they really enjoy coming to Berry Hill. I've had many people, I like this young lady with the puppy. She comes once a year, and she was determined that I come in and I spend time with her. And I was like, you got it. I'm going to put you in there when I'm there, and we're going to hang out. And it's just, that feels good as a provider for these services.
Sure.
I know that when I leave at the end of the day, I've done something to help somebody, and that's what makes me feel good. And I know they feel good. So.
When we're talking about needing a break and what have you, and in talking about, like, if you had toddlers 24/7, this, that, and the other thing, is I think a lot of people have learned over the past 2 years with the pandemic, and especially in the period of time where everything was a bit more locked down.
Yeah.
And everybody was under one roof. So you had families that typically both spouses would be out in the workplace, they'd come home, the kids would be in school or daycare or what have you. Now everybody was under one roof. And lo and behold, what did we find after 2 years is anxiety and depression were like at all-time
Yeah.
highs. And people who never thought about mental health, all of a sudden were going, ooh, I think I understand now that, you know, people in many instances
Yeah.
struggle with certain situations. So I just wanted to connect that point to what
Yep.
you're saying, is that I think a lot more people may understand, having gone through that the last couple of years, the
Yeah.
types of circumstances that you're talking about
Yeah.
with these individuals. So I know you have kind of mentioned successes, but it certainly is a large part of why all of you do what you do, because you know that every circumstance doesn't end up, you know, maybe with the outcome that you're looking for. But for those that do achieve certain goals and they're living a better life, and, you know, you can really say to yourself, you know, you were a big part of making
Yeah.
that happen. So with that being said, can you share a story or two about some of the successes at Berry Hill that individuals and or families have benefited from the individual having a stay there?
Yeah, it really goes back to the break point of that, where they are getting that recharge. We've had certain situations where consumers really are, they could be suicidal, they could be literally walking down the road with a bag on their back, no bag on their back, no shoes, you know, like they're done, they're completely over, and they do get to come to Berry Hill and recharge. We have particular consumer that comes in pretty regularly. There's a moment in their family where they are just completely overwhelmed. There'll be blowouts, emergency services is called. And one of those points that they can bring to them is, oh, you know, you go to Berry Hill next week. And that can be like, oh, okay, I just got to go through a few more days here. Not that here is bad, but I need a break.
Yeah.
You know, I need to be able to release and remove myself from these four walls and see a different set of four walls. And we can go out and do activities, and, you know, we go swimming, we go to lunch, we go tour the rail trails, we've planted a garden. We have a lot of wildlife where we are. So sometimes folks haven't even seen a little fox running around, or deer, or turkeys. You should see the amount of turkeys we get. It's crazy amount of turkeys up there. So it's just a good feeling to watch those folks enjoy those moments, and that's what feels successful, is you're seeing a smile on their face. You see them comfortable. They want to come back. They create relationships with each of the staff members very individually, and each staff member does the same back. And it's a real, you walk in there and know that you're cared for, and that you're surrounded by folks that are there to make sure that you're happy, healthy, and successful. And that's not easy to come by when we're talking about the population that we end up with. We take the folks that don't just have respite regularly. You know, there's a lot of folks in our community who do take personal respite, and so those folks are, the consumers are then allowed into their home, and they have a new family, you know, aspect to work with for that respite weekend. Berry Hill is really just a staff member and a consumer, or two staff and a consumer, or maybe two consumers and a staff. It's very limited. It's very vacation-like. And who doesn't like vacation?
Right.
Depends if you're paying for it or not, my friend.
This is true.
So Developmental Services, Emergency Services has the two components, which I know you've mentioned earlier: the initial phone call or page, as well as the check-in follow-up calls. I know you've talked a bit about the importance of those, but can you further elaborate on how important those check-in calls are and how they truly do make a difference in people's lives?
Caitlin, please.
Well, I mean, like we talked about a little bit earlier, the check-ins are very much preventative. We work with our service coordinators. We, you know, are in constant communication with each other and figuring out where the needs lie. And a lot of it comes down to knowing the clients and knowing, okay, this person's not had a great week. They would really benefit from just a little extra support, just a resource to know that, you know, okay, at the end of the day or this afternoon, I'm gonna get a call, I'm gonna be able to debrief and kind of work through what's been going on and what's been bothering me. And it really just, it is very preventative, and it is therapeutic to a lot of them to just be able to know that somebody's there at the end of the day. And like we talked about earlier, a lot of them don't necessarily have that.
You're filling a void.
Right.
You know, I can call my mom at any moment.
Exactly.
You may not have that. That person may
Yeah.
not have that.
Exactly.
And it's a void. It's filling a void.
Exactly. And
Very
and
important.
it's very much, it prevents that person from then needing to go through another traumatic experience,
Yeah.
you know, having to deal with 911 and first responders from there, going to the hospital, things like that, or worse, you know, acting on some really bad thoughts that they've been having, mental health struggles. And it comes down to our service coordinators knowing their clients, knowing what they need, and being able to reach out for that resource. And I think that we've prevented a lot of issues from becoming bigger issues
Absolutely.
by our check-in calls.
And I'll just throw it out. Caitlin and currently John LeBlanc are my Saturday, John, Sunday, Caitlin folks. That weekend component is huge for a lot of these folks that are so used to hearing from their service coordinator every day
Yeah.
during Monday through Friday.
Sure.
And then you have that gap. And it's like, it can be a real struggle for folks. So I really, you know, just appreciate how hard John and Caitlin work on the weekends to make sure that they're following up and connecting with those people and meeting those needs for those individuals.
And very selflessly. You
Yeah.
know, you're taking your weekends where you're supposed to be recharging and taking your break as well too, right? So.
And I mean, you don't even really realize how much of a difference it makes until you get on the phone with somebody and they're like, oh, I've been waiting for this phone call. You know, I didn't get to talk with my service coordinator today. You know, I've been waiting to talk with them. I really have this thing I want to tell them. Could you tell them this for me? You know, and you really can tell when you get on the phone with those people that this call was important, even though it's a small part of your day, even though it's, you know, oh, just another check-in call. They've been waiting all day for this call. You know, they've been waiting all day to talk with you and process and just hear somebody else's voice. Some of them live alone, don't have resources, don't have supports, can't call their mom, you know, and they're waiting on this phone call. And once you get on that phone and you hear that, and it's just, it's rewarding to know that, you know, we're able to provide that support.
And it's huge for the agency as well. I mean, you look at us, you know, NCSS Here For You. This is really a Here For You program. I mean,
Yeah.
we're 24/7 doing that. And the calls that Caitlin participates in, the work, the notes that the team at Berry Hill and the Angel, that all gets back to the service coordinators and gets back to the therapists and gets back to the other supports at the agency. And so they're able to know what's happening with people outside of that Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, to really do good care coordination. And that's what I love is how we have that feedback loop that gets back to the people that, you know, have the better relationships and have the different responsibilities to care for folks. Yeah, it's great to see this coordination piece.
I'm not technically on the emergency services team currently, but I do receive their emails and I can follow through on things that I follow along with things that are happening. And so most of those folks, a good portion of those folks will come to Berry Hill at some point. And so we're able to really track what's happening and how the success of the calls or different pieces that the emergency services is providing, we can then either reiterate, help, adjust, or fix and work with at Berry Hill as well. So it's a real full circle.
Communication.
Yes. Yeah.
Communication, and these are terrific programs, and you know, this is lifelong for these folks. You know, unlike our children's and behavioral health divisions where the intent is somebody comes in, we hopefully help them, and then off they go. These are individuals that need your support, you know, their entire life.
Yes.
So I want to thank you on behalf of NCSS for all the work that all of you do. And with that, our time is up. I know it may seem hard, but believe I told you it wouldn't take long.
It's true. It is true.
But I do want to thank my guests, Ed Riddle, Angel Goldsmith, and Caitlin Lakis, for sharing their insights on the NCSS Developmental Services Emergency and Respite Supports and making a difference each day. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS and all of our programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here For You.